this morning and midday today were dominated by the musings of an American president about the possible ordered eradication of, in his words, you see them there, a whole civilization. He meant Iran, of course, a country of some 91 million people. My notes tell me that it is one of the world's oldest continuous civilizations, with urban and rural settlements dating back 5 millennia BC. That's how old that civilization is. Now, the president's deadline, 8 p.m. tonight, by all accounts, remains. It is impossible to list all of the president's demands. He has, in the last few days, been keeping them to himself. But they appear to include the following: reopening the Strait of Hormuz, obtaining binding concessions on nuclear weapons development, ballistic missiles, and Iran's support for terrorist proxies. Frantic diplomacy took over the late afternoon today. Moments ago, the president told Fox News he is involved in what he called, quote unquote, heated negotiations. Pakistan, through its prime minister, begged the president to extend his 8 p.m. Eastern deadline 2 weeks to allow for further negotiations. The prime minister also urged Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz as a goodwill gesture. The White House, through the press secretary, said Trump is aware of all of this and will respond. When, we simply do not know. We do know this: the risks and ramifications of the president's rhetoric on this day cannot be overstated. It's either a deal or the ruination of a civilian infrastructure of an entire country, or most of it. That threat itself struck many Democrats in Congress as a violation of international law and possibly the Pentagon's own laws of war. Italy's prime minister, typically aligned with Trump on global issues, said Iranian civilians, quote, cannot and must not be made to pay the price for the guilt of its government, unquote. Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, as steadfast a MAGA Republican as you're likely to find in the GOP conference, said today he opposes U.S. attacks on Iran's civilian infrastructure. Interesting voices, interesting perspectives. For more on all of this, and it may break as we are talking to him, Ed O'Keefe at the White House. Ed?
Hitting refresh as you speak there, Major.
We're all hitting refresh.
Waiting. Yeah, because we're awaiting word on whether the president wants to take the Pakistani prime minister up on this offer. As you said, it's essentially an ask for 2 more weeks to allow diplomacy to run its course. And then he's asking his, quote, Iranian brothers to open Strait of Hormuz for a corresponding period of 2 weeks as a goodwill gesture. And they want a ceasefire among all warring parties for those 2 weeks to try to cut a deal. The Pakistani prime minister is someone the president trusts. He has been an intermediary here over the last several weeks as this conflict has unfolded. It is our understanding that it was he who got those 8, then 10 ships through the strait that the president talked about. Remember when he talked about Iran had given us a present? Well, it was the Pakistani prime minister who arranged for that present to be delivered in terms of allowing those ships through the strait. So the White House tells us the president's reviewing this. In the last several minutes, he's been truthing about unrelated domestic political matters, which is leaving all of us wondering when is the announcement of potentially accepting this coming. But with only about 3 hours to go now, the clock is definitely ticking. And it signals yet again that the president has said something quite astonishing that drew immediate rebukes, even from members of his own party. And yet it may have warded off a wider armed conflict, at least for now.
And Ed, I know we talked about this on the program with Ouija last night, but is there any sense when we think of the Iranian response, we know who the responding parties are that the Pakistanis are either dealing with or the United States and the Trump administration through Steve Witkoff or others are dealing with? Because the president hasn't really specified, to my knowledge.
He has not, and nor has, he has not, nor has Steve Witkoff, nor has Jared Kushner, nor has any other American official that we know of so far. There are reports from the region through Al Jazeera, which is in that part of the world, reputable and well-sourced organization, that the Iranians are also reviewing this. Because remember, it's one thing for the president to call off the warning of armed conflict tonight. It's another for the Iranians to open the strait. And if that's what the president's waiting to see happen to ward off military conflict. Well, that's in essence what we were waiting for before this all began, so why would they suddenly do so? And who exactly is calling those shots? Again, a good question, has not yet been answered. And so whoever it is apparently reviewing this offer, and we'll see how it is the two sides communicate with each other, that they're either rejecting or accepting it. Earlier in the day, there had been reports that the Iranians were no longer interested in negotiating, and so it led many to believe that we were on the verge of a broader military conflict. But now comes this Pakistani message, and we wait to see what the two sides think.
Ed O'Keefe, you and I have been to comedy clubs, not together, but we know what they're like, and they have an open mic night policy at some of them. I want you to know, for the better part of this program, well, for the duration of this program, you have an open mic. Something happens, you come to the mic, you let us know. Wave your arms, and we'll come right to you.
Sounds good. We'll be here.
Thank you. Ed O'Keefe at the White House. CBS News national security contributor Joe Zacks joins me now at the family table. He previously served as Deputy Assistant Director for Counterterrorism for the CIA. So, Joe, we're all just waiting. How does this moment strike you?
A tense moment, without a doubt. I think a lot can happen between now and 8 p.m.
People keep asking me, should we believe the president? Do you think he's serious? And I say, yes, you should take this seriously.
100%. I've said that from day one. The president is very serious. I think he's also communicating very seriously in the language that he's using, that he's not going to tolerate or stand for endless negotiations and procrastination. I think that's one of the hallmarks and trademarks of the Iranians, is their ability to not only be tough negotiators, but drag out negotiations for a lengthy period of time. And I think that that's what some of this rhetoric is meant to do, both to inform the Iranians that his patience is not limitless, and also to inform others who are involved in this behind the scenes that we really need to get moving. There's a sense of urgency to all this. And I will note that from everything I understand and some of my own experiences with the Pakistanis previously, they are playing a very constructive role in this, and it's good to see that.
When any president, but since it's only been one, this one, talks about an entire civilization dying, does that imply a contemplation of tactical nuclear weapons?
I don't see that as being the case. I don't see that at all.
People online keep saying, is that what this means? Is that what this means? People are talking about this online, like frantically, like, are we talking about nukes?
I don't see that as being the case. I think that, there's...
That would be a misreading from your vantage point.
From my vantage point, I think that's a misreading. I think there's some flourish to this rhetoric, and I think that what the president is really trying to communicate, although he hasn't told this to me, I'm only speculating that what he's trying to communicate is that there needs to be, by all parties, those directly involved and those who are trying to help on the margins, that this is a serious matter and it needs to be resolved with a sense of purpose and a sense of haste.
You've been around conversations at the highest levels of the U.S. government. Is there any danger of invoking rhetoric like this? Because at some point, you either have to prove you're serious about it or walk away from it. Because it doesn't give the president a lot of room for maneuver.
Well, I don't see the great Iranian civilization, and this is a battle with a despotic regime, not with a civilization. I don't see the great Iranian civilization, the decent people of Iran, of which many of that 93 million population are great Iranian citizens who have suffered tremendously these past 47 years under
he doesn't mean
despotic
that. You read that and you don't think he means that.
I don't see the great Iranian, Persian civilization melting away. I think that what the president, this is just my personal read of this. He hasn't communicated this to me, nor has anyone else at the White House. But my personal read of this is that that he's simply not going to put up with delay after delay after delay. And I think he just used some very colorful rhetoric, to say the least, in trying to make that point.
Joe, you said it, to say the least. I appreciate you coming in. Thanks so much, as always.
Thanks. Good to see you.